Guess Who's Coming to Dinner is a pretty interesting film, and it definitely raises a lot of food for thought, certainly at the time in 1967, but I think maybe even today, unfortunately. This is directed by Stanley Kramer, written by William Rose, and the reason I wanted to watch this is because I love Katharine Hepburn. She plays Christina Drayton, the mother of Joey, who's played by Catherine Houghton. We also have Spencer Tracy as Matt Drayton, Joey's father. And Joey has been away on a trip in Hawaii, and she brings home Dr. Prentice, Dr. John Prentice, played by Sidney Poitier. And it turns out that after 10 days of knowing each other, they've decided to get married. And that in itself is pretty outrageous, and I feel like the film should have focused more on the whole 10 days thing as well, maybe as a reason to dissuade her from this marriage. But certain people want to dissuade her from this marriage because Dr. Prentice is black and Joey is white. And it's not necessarily the case that her family or Dr. Prentice's family are racist, but they are very aware that society will look upon this relationship with scorn, and they'll be very judgmental about it, and they have concerns about their grandchildren. They haven't even had children yet, but the children that they do have, their grandchildren, they worry that they'll obviously be bullied and will have a very difficult lot in life. And their concerns are definitely coming from a place of love, but I feel like some people are struggling with it a lot more than others. And I won't say which characters are finding it a lot more difficult. There is also one character who I actually really did not like at all, but she's got a very interesting perspective, and that's Tillie, played by Isabel Sanford, and she's actually a black maid or a cook. She works for the Drayton family, and she's really quite nasty and really horrible to John Prentice. And her heart's in the right place because she's worried he's being rather nasty and he has nasty intentions with Joey. But she said one line about how he shouldn't be getting above his station, i.e., a black man marrying into a white family. And I just thought, is that an accurate representation of how some black people viewed themselves and where they should be in life? Was it seen as going above their station, marrying into a white family, and that they shouldn't, be thinking of doing that because they're not worthy of that? Like, I imagine that, yeah, a lot of people probably did feel like that, which is a horrific thing. And let's face it, it's white man's fault that those beliefs are even in existence. But hopefully, this film kind of shows that actually it's not a case of going above your station and getting too big for your boots, if you like. It's just a case of making people realize it's not unusual or not strange for a black person and a white person to get married. And as I said, in the film, the families are not, saying that you can't marry him because he's black. They're saying you can't marry him because society doesn't accept this. But then that's kind of part of the problem. By preventing or trying to discourage this marriage, you're saying, well, society is fine to continue thinking what they're thinking. We'll just give in to their thoughts and make sure that our life is dictated by society's prejudices. And I think the film does a really good job of kind of highlighting that message and saying that this is the problem. And I think it's done in a way that I thought, I was nervous watching it. I was thinking, is this going to be racist? Is it going to be awkward? Are there going to be derogatory terms thrown everywhere? And yeah, there are a couple, but I think it does a really good job of highlighting the fact that opinions were changing. And if you're watching this at the time thinking, no, they can't get married, the film really shows, well, society is wrong to think like this. And I think it does a decent job of getting that message across. Dr. Prentice is a very likable character, which I think was essential. If he was unlikable, it would have been a bit awkward. And Joey's very young and very spirited, and I want the best for her, but I also want to slap her and tell her, knock some sense into her. 10 days, get a grip of yourself, woman. Dr. Prentice, I feel like, should have had a little bit more sense than to marry somebody after knowing them for 10 days, but he's got a bit of a tragic past where one could argue, well, what difference does it make how long you wait? You'd never know what the outcome will be or what will happen with your relationship, so why waste time? So I get it. I get his motivations for agreeing with Joey's haste. It's definitely Joey who's wanting things done quickly. Very well acted across the board, very well told narrative. I feel like 2/3 of it are not that serious. Like, there's a little bit of comedy injected in there. The whole ice cream thing was peculiar, but I feel like it was necessary humour. And then in the final third, things really get serious. They realise what might happen, and it's time to talk serious, basically. And I think the balance of the tone across the film is very effectively done. It's a real roller coaster. What I will say is that not everybody's, but Katharine Hepburn's and Katherine Houghton, their eyes were watering from the very second they appeared on screen throughout the entire film, and it was really distracting. And this is not just scenes where they've been crying or they're particularly over emotional. It's literally the entire film. Their eyes are watering as if they're filling up with tears, even in scenes where they're quite happy. And I don't know why this is, but it was really distracting. So if I had to find some criticism, it would be with that. And it's not the actors. I have seen Katharine Hepburn in many films and her eyes don't water profusely. So I'm not entirely sure what was going on there. But that aside, I was nervous to watch this film. But it turns out it's actually pretty fabulous. It addresses a really important topic that, as I said, I feel is still pretty prevalent today. Not in any great extent, of course, but I think even today, if a black person and a white person, or any two people of different races, end up in a relationship, people will have comments. Not as many people, hopefully, but I think everybody needs to watch this film. It will really put things into a different perspective. A very balanced film, and one with a tone that I thought was pretty great throughout. Definitely enjoyed it.